Good evening, and welcome to the Good Batter Bullshit podcast, where we discuss a topic and we have an unrehearsed conversation about that topic, and then we provide you a quality review. My name is Mike Hodgins. I'm one of your three hosts on this show, along with Mr. Bo Schwartz. Hello, Bo.
Hello, everyone.
And of course, Crofton Steers. Hello, Crofton.
Hello, people.
You know, when I was doing that intro, I saw like we have this little intro sheet, and one of the things was like, we've been providing quality reviews on random topics since 2013. And I was like, wow, that seems like a long time ago.
It used to be a joke too. Like the joke was like, hey, that's not that long ago, when we were doing it in 2014, haha, it was last year.
Exactly.
But now it's like, hey, wait, that's legit. I remember the Wakefield General Store, which was a general store in the town I grew up in, had a sign that said, since 1979. And that sign went up in like 1980 or something. And when I was a kid and it was like, 1988 and there would be that sign since 1979, even kid me was like, that's not that impressive. And they really put it up there in kind of like a heritage font as if to sell it. But now that 1979, that's pretty impressive. Seems like a long time ago.
They were planning ahead.
Yeah, they were.
One
like,
day.
Time will make this sign look impressive.
And they were right. So it's been a while since we've done one of these, and it's kind of good. Feels good to be back in the saddle.
Yeah, and you know, there's been a real world of difference between the last time we did it because I think COVID was just ramping up as kind of a thing, and we were, had a different view of things at that time. A lot of time has passed since then.
Yeah. Have your views changed?
Well, I burnt all my belongings to create a bonfire.
I'm living in a bunker deep under the earth.
I'm going to work. I've been going to work every day, like sashayed. I've been taking the bus. I've been in cabs. I've been to the store. I'm at work. I'm everywhere. Pandemic, really?
If our premier Doug Ford was here, he'd slap you across the face.
No, I'm an essential worker, so I have to work.
That's true.
I will say though that I know that podcasts have been a source of comfort for me in the past little while. Like when I have some downtime, like listening to people talking about normal stuff when the world is crazy and when you're balancing work and childcare and all of this sort of things has been challenging. So I have felt a little bit bad about like not putting out content during this time period. But first and foremost, everybody should be prioritizing themselves and their families, and I think that is what we've been doing, so I have zero regrets about that.
I've been developing a mild irritation though. Like podcast, you're totally right, podcasts have been great during this time and lots of videos, but it seems like every out of work performer or personality is suddenly starting a podcast or a YouTube thing. Right now I just saw a thing not 5 minutes ago that said David Lynch has been doing a weather report every morning and you've been missing out in life because you haven't seen this. And I'm like, I looked at it and I was like, I know it's weird because it's David Lynch doing something uncharacteristic and he probably is doing it in a very weird way, but who gives a fuck? I wouldn't watch a random person give me the weather. Why do I care to watch it because it's David Lynch? Why are you trying to tell me that this is important? And maybe it is really cool or funny or something like that, but they're all out of work, so that's why they're just hanging out in their house slumming it, and what they're doing is they're encroaching on our territory. I'm like, we're not doing this because we're out of work actors. We're doing this because we enjoy doing it and we want to.
But Bo, that's why we have that big stamp providing quality reviews since 2013, so we can stick it to David Lynch and who's like, my COVID-19 podcast, and we're like, no, David Lynch.
Actually,
I just imagine
he has a weather report, but Ben Chang and Joel McHale from Community have started a podcast, and he's a doctor in a past life, so he talks about COVID. It's like a COVID-19 podcast. It's hilarious. Huh. But like you name a celebrity that you like.
Crofton Steers.
Nah, that isn't yourself.
David Lee Roth
probably has a podcast.
Probably. It's probably terrible, as bad as the singing.
Like I mean,
like David Lee Roth slam.
It's the same with social media accounts and podcast accounts. Like if you're a celebrity, you immediately get a massive boost in terms of listenership, and all. There's going to be people that are going to listen to your opinion.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I mean, I'm not jealous. There's been tons of, almost all podcasts have more listeners than this show. So I mean, it's not like I'm like, those bastards are making it harder for me. I just find it more irritating because there's so much to choose from, and I just like, now it's filling up my YouTube feed, and it's all, the news articles like John Krasinski is now doing a new show, but it's all positive stuff, and I'm like, he's
Good
out
news
of
grows.
work. I'm just like, yeah. Yeah, I'm just irritated by the sudden swelling of.
Yeah,
Everybody's stuck at home, although that's starting to change, and that's it. Like, just, I love dating these podcasts because of how long it takes Bo to publish them. So, like, let's just say right now, Crofton is about to go on summer vacation for 3 weeks. It's his last day at work tomorrow. He's super stoked about it, but by the time this airs, he probably will have had his vacation and probably be.
You never know. I have two speeds. One is it gets posted quickly, like right away, or
That's
it's like a long time.
Either way, I'm investing in the joke.
Yeah. And I think we should try our hardest to make sure that our next podcast is Crofton's first or either last day of vacation, so that he's feeling sad, or first day back from work, so that he's also feeling sad.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're good.
Actually,
friends.
You know what? And to double down on that, I'll go to his house beforehand and smash all his gaming consoles, so that he is, yes, you guessed it, feeling sad.
And angry too.
You're like, I can't. Not only is it my last day of vacation, some asshole broke into my house and smashed on my computer. I'm like, yeah, what a jerk. Let's get on with the show. Sure. I have like pieces of like console hanging out my hair.
All right. Well,
let's. You want to get going on?
I do. Do.
So and I feel like I need to refresh my own memory of the fact that we're not doing random topics. It is Crofton's turn to provide us with a topic this day. Neither Bo nor I know what it is. And so, yeah, we're going to have a conversation about that. And I'm very excited to hear what it is. And better not disappoint Crofton. There's a lot riding on this.
I scheduled a delivery from a bird.
Nope, that's not it.
The bird will deliver the topic that I prearranged with
Corona-Krise noch.
And then I will read it.
That depends. We don't know this bird's migratory patterns, if it's in feeding or mating season. It could be out there building a nest right now and doesn't have time to deliver said message.
All right.
Is the bird on its way, Bo?
Well, it's about to arrive. Are you ready?
Oh, yes, I'm ready.
Because he drops the message really quick, and if you don't catch it, he gets really upset. So concentrate. All right.
That's why I'm outside.
Here he comes. Oh, you got it. When you catch something, you have to have your hands together. Why are they out?
Oh, okay. I got it here. And before I reveal the topic,
yes,
one little note. Normally, when we do these topics where one of us chooses and the other two don't know, the person who chooses should be able to carry the conversation, be somewhat of an expert, if you will, in the topic. This is not one of those times, and I'm really hoping that my two co-hosts will be able to help me out here, but I'm also quite confident that they will. So the topic this week is stress.
Oh,
stress. Is it good? Is it bad? Or is it bullshit? And just to be clear, because I thought this was a very clear thing, I'm like, I know what being stressed is. I Googled stress quickly and then immediately was greeted by a series of biology articles that made it sound extremely complicated to my layman brain with regards to, how it's a physiological response to environmental conditions and stuff.
Does it mention cortisol? That's all I think about with the chemical cortisol, which is like bad, and stress gets your cortisol. That's all. Like my initial thing when you said like stress, stress must be bad, and I've heard that. Like,
that's what my initial jump was too, right?
And largely it is. Clearly, too much stress is bad. You hear that. My father-in-law has shingles. Crofton, I think you had shingles at one point. Not the most.
It sucked.
Yeah, it's not the most pleasant thing, and they often say it's brought on by stress. Where your immune, it could be whatever. So yeah, sometimes it'll bring up sicknesses, mental health clearly. But then, I always think of this like stress as in like I've cortisol, which is this chemical, but it's the worst chemical in your body that it gives you cancer. Just like you want to avoid cortisol. I don't know anything about cortisol, just so that you know. I'm not pretending to be an expert because I do not know anything about it. Other than they say it's bad, and stress is the kind of impetus to it. But before we get into some of the nitty gritty, I instantly was like, you know what? But stress is also a little bit like a push to action, to some degree, because I will think something like if I'm at work and then, I'm having a kind of lazy day at the end of the week, and all of a sudden my boss comes in and it's like, there's some things I really need to get done, but end of the day, can you do this, this, and this? And there's like 2 hours to spare. And I'm like, yes, I got to do it. And then it's like, okay, stress levels are up, but it also kind of like lights a fire under your ass. And then, I'll start doing something. And if you can overcome that thing, then sometimes it feels satisfying. So like can be a powerful motivator, clearly. If a bear attacks you in the forest, that's stressful. You might run up a tree and save yourself because, I don't know. There's clearly reason why.
Yeah, if you weren't stressed out, you wouldn't run up the tree. You'd be like, "Hey, man, you got
hey bear, what's up?" He's like, "I'll tell you what's up," and then he kills you.
He'll kill you. Be like, "That's what's up."
Welcome to the forest, bitch. What do you say? Yes, so the stress response in that case is good because it gets you moving.
Yeah.
Welcome to the forest.
But who knows? Maybe the bear would have been like, "This human seems chill, man. Have a seat. Let's share some money." Christopher Robin and Winnie the Pooh never seem stressed to me.
Yeah, I mean, but so look, there's a response there. It does draw a response, like, but too much bad.
Yeah, so I've got stuff to say on this too.
All right, go ahead.
Not that I'm gonna get it all out now, but for our listeners' benefit, I'm going through some mental health diagnoses, but that we're gonna make it the subject of the show. But we brought up stress, so I'm not gonna make all of them the top or bring it all up. But just so they're aware, might have ADHD, definitely have some addiction issues. But the one thing that my counselor was certain of is she gave me a clinical opinion of generalized anxiety disorder, which is an ability to switch off the stress state, essentially. So if I am, Mike's right. You are not stressed, but we experience stress almost every day. We work 5 days a week. So at work, there are pressures and we're in a stress state. We're trying to figure out duration, path, outcome. Like, what do we have to get done in a day? Like our brains are working on problems throughout the day. And, they're time sensitive. There's people that we might answer to. Maybe we're not all like that. But definitely for me, when I'm at work or before going to work, I'm in a stress state. And I maintain that all day. And then when I come home, and before, when I was drinking lots of sugar, I'm a smoker, right? Smoke Watch 2015. I'm a smoker, stimulant, caffeine fiend, staying up too late, so eating sugary, high-fat foods that are junk food ordered in, like even now before the show, because now I'm doing better. I got tired and I was very tempted to have some sugar, have a coffee, so I can feel amped again to do the show. And I didn't do that, thankfully, but that was a difficult thing. But the point being that I am mostly in a stress state, and I don't experience relaxation state or depressive states that much. So I am an expert on kind of. I'm constantly in a stress state, apparently.
So, Bo, can you explain some from the difference, or Mike, either of you, the difference for me between sort of being stressed and being anxious, in the sense that okay, some days I get up and I know what I've got ahead of me, and I'm I have to chair all these meetings at work with lots of people, and then I've got to deliver on all these things, and I feel like anxious, like I'm dreading it, and I'm really I just want to almost call in sick and stuff like that, and I feel so bad. And then my day starts, and then I feel stress. Oh my God, I got to get all this done. But then it's like it's like what Mike says. It pushes me into doing my things, and I get through my day, and I'm actually really productive, and often at the end I'm like, oh, that wasn't so bad, and I managed to do things very well. So during the day I constantly had this ambient stress. I'm like, oh, I got to do all this. But prior to my day, I was like anxious and dreading, and the evening before I'm like, oh God, tomorrow's gonna suck so bad. and so like for me, understanding the difference between, because I don't even see what the benefit or the goodness is about the stress before.
So maybe
It's the during that seems to be beneficial.
Here's the difference. Maybe you're taking your daughter out for a walk and you're playing in the park, and there's a little pole that's about maybe a foot off the ground, and she can tightrope walk across it. And you're a little worried, like, I gotta watch her, I'm gonna catch her. You're sort of moving along with her, so you're paying attention. You're not just relaxed. You're like, if she hits her head on this, but I want to, she won't fall very far, so I know she won't get very injured. But I'm paying attention to take care of her as she walks across the tightrope, in this park. Now, let's say your daughter decides to tightrope across a chasm. Are you just gonna try and, you're not gonna be able to walk with her? You're going to be a little more than, you're going to be stressed for sure, but you're also going to be worried she's going to die, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So you're stressed in both situations. You're in a stress state, but you're worried about a dire outcome in the second example. So if you are anxious a lot, so it's reasonable to be worried that bad outcomes will happen and to be moved to act. But if you're worried all the time and you develop a habit of worry, and then you worry about possibilities that are not likely to come up just because you're in the habit of worrying, like every day when I leave the house, I'm worried I'm going to burn Mike's house down. It's never happened. I've gone to work and had to cab back home to make sure everything was turned off and come back to work because I can't remember. I check it like 3 times before I leave, and still I don't remember, and I worry that I did something silly like that. And so
Can I pause? Can I pause you for a second? Just for the listeners at home to clarify, Bo rents at Mike's house, and therefore when he leaves, he's not worried that he's going to lose control, run over to Mike's house and light it on fire, which may have been your first assumption.
No, sorry.
I'm worried I'm going to burn Mike's house down. Like, I just have this urge to go there and set it on fire.
Oh, sorry, you're right.
I wake up and I just want to light it down.
Important clarification. Yeah. Thank you. That's very
no problem.
So, and I wasn't just like this with Mike. Like, I was like this in the last place I rented too. I don't want to be responsible for damages.
Yeah, I remember picking you up and having to drive back.
Remember the bachelor party?
Oh yeah.
We went to, I think Mike Crofton, you were there too. We were driving to Montreal for a bachelor party, and 30 minutes to Montreal, I was like, guys, I don't know if I locked my door. And you're like, you locked your door. And I'm like, I don't know.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah,
and you were all there. That. We hung out at my place before we left, and you're like, Bo, you locked your door. And I was like, we're not gonna have fun this weekend if I don't go back and check. And then Mike was like, okay, well, I guess
I think it was the oven. Was it not the oven?
I thought it was the oven.
It might have been I left the oven on. The 2 ones that always happen to me, and they still happen to me, are I think I left my oven on, and I think I left water running, and I think I didn't lock my door. And it still happened. I did it like a couple months ago. If I can't remember and I don't have a ritual for it, I worry, and I shouldn't worry, and I can't help it. So that is part of the stress state. But worry is not all stress.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's funny because to your point, Crofton, that there's clearly like, what's the difference between anxiety and stress? And I mean, they are kind of, I feel like they're dancing around each other a little bit. Because a lot of the stuff, because when you're describing that, kind of like, oh, I'm a little bit of foreboding. That's like an anxious state, thinking about this thing, feeling, it's like you could almost swap out that stress for anxiety in a lot of those cases. I'm feeling anxious about my work day. I have stuff to get done. I'm feeling stressed about my work day. Got to get this stuff done. What is the difference? And it's unclear to me. Specifically, but I thought of something when you were saying that was sort of like a counter, which maybe gives us a bit of grounding, and it's sort of an interesting kind of tidbit that I heard about people who suffer from psychopathy, so psychopaths. Mm-hmm. So apparently, one of the interesting things about psychopaths is that they don't suffer stress very much, and not all psychopaths are crazy murderers. In fact, most are not. It's very most are not. It's just like something that it's a mental
In pop
health
culture,
condition.
psychopaths are
Yeah, they're gonna stab someone in the
madmen.
but really, I mean, they a couple things lack empathy, which is a part of why they get that bad rap. But part of that lacking empathy, because you think about what is empathy, like you're thinking about someone else, you're maybe stressed or worried about how they're gonna feel, if you're gonna ruin their day, or you want to make them feel good. It's like you can see how all those things relate to maybe stress and worry a little bit about someone you care about or whatever. Whereas a psychopath does not feel empathy for people, but they also don't suffer stress in nearly the same way. And apparently, this is why a lot of people who are like top executives, CEOs, heads of state, are
Presidents
often,
of America.
yes, are often psychopaths. And again, this does not mean that they are going out to kill people, not at all. But they tend to fall into these jobs because a lot of people like myself, I'd be this type of person where I'm like, I don't want to move up too much, there's too much responsibility at work, or like people are gonna be breathing down I just don't want to move up. You think about that stress associated. People who move up those corporate ladders don't feel the stress to the same degree you do. And that's not all positive, because we don't want a world of psychopaths as people who don't suffer from anxiety, who maybe lack empathy. I'm not saying that they're the inverse, that if you have stress, it's good because it proves you're not a psychopath. I'm just saying it helps maybe balance off some of this stuff. Like stress, there's a lot to it. Anxiety, worry, it's not one thing, and some amount of it does good things. Like if you feel stressed out about the state of your children, and like Bo's example, like I will feel some stress and anxiety when I see my son taking a risk, climbing a tree. Like I could feel, like the other day he was climbing a tree, it was pretty high, like higher than I could reach him. And I'm kind of like, I always felt like I was a bit of a helicopter parent where I'm trying to like watch him. I'm trying to resist that. Like kids got to take a risk. I took tons of risks when I was a kid. Let them climb the tree, and then, but I mean, I feel that stress, right? What is it? It's worry, it's anxiety.
Like if you walk away to go to the kitchen and be like, pretend it's not happening, it's like you're thinking about it.
Yeah. And like we're trying to do that. We luckily live beside a park, and we'll be like, hey, go out and play in the park. It's a public place. I can sometimes see him, I sometimes can't. And I'm trying to like give him that longer leash, but I'm just, sometimes you start to be like, oh man, is a stranger going to walk away with my kid, or is he going to break his leg someplace? I can't hear him. That's stress, that's worry. But what is the purpose of that stress and that worry? It's to protect your offspring, protect the people you care about. There are places where stress response is really useful, like keeping you alive, keeping other people safe. You're in the forest, getting a sweet welcome from a bear. You want that stress response, like there are places, and I guess it seems like the issue in our society is that we get into these, I feel like, these states of false stress. Like we're because of the way we work, and the like, remember we talked about the 40-hour work week, and it's kind of like fitting everything into your life. Because of that, it's like stress can kind of seep in everywhere, where it's like you're stressed to get your kids out the door in the morning to school, or get yourself dressed and fed. You're like, I gotta get to work at 9. I was up a bit late last night because I was doing something for myself. Stress. You get to work. Okay, now at work you got a bunch of things to get done. It's just seeping all through your day, and then you're like a bit late at work. You're like, damn it, I was supposed to make dinner tonight. Like I get these feelings sometimes. Late getting home, you're trying to get food on the table. Oh, you've screwed up your kid's bedtime, and now that's stress. And you're just like, man, my whole effing day is stress. And I think that is problematic, and that's a bit of a symptom of the modern world we live in, right? Where it's like we all are subjected to this low level, not useful stress a lot of the time, and that's like over time, I think, detrimental.
So one thing about stress that I'm curious about again is like a lot of what you're talking about, Mike, resonates with me, that the stressors and things that would make me stressed. And I guess like, cause I hate being stressed. Like I don't like it in general. I like being chilled and relaxed, which I try to do a lot, but often I put on that I'm more relaxed than potentially I am. I still have, the stress going on in the background, or worry or what have you. And so I like to be relaxed, but it feels like if you're in a constant state of relaxation, like if you're always like chill and relaxed, isn't there a strong likelihood that that's when people, and this never happens to me, anymore, but I know that some people will say, I'm bored, like boredom. Mm-hmm. I'm bored because they're not being pressed in any way in their lives. Like is it possible to constantly not be bored but also not experience any sort of sort of stress? And also, like, to that effect, when you look at things like, be it bungee jumping or adrenaline sports or anything like that, it's people, like, it's a different type of stress. Like, it's not the work stress, but it's people putting themselves in that space. I definitely remember, like, sometimes I'd be really like, I wouldn't be stressed at work. I would have had my coffee in the morning and I'm just super sleepy. And I just wanted to feel like, that feeling of like, oh, I want to feel alive. And I was like, oh, I should talk to my brother about bungee jumping. Context: he runs a bungee jump site. It's not that he would throw me off a bridge, it's that he actually can help me with that. With the idea that, like, that would be a sensation that would cause me physical stress, but in a pleasant way, like almost like a ride, if you will.
Yeah.
And
Well, oh, sorry.
yeah, no, go ahead, Bo. Sorry.
No, because I think just what you're sort of thinking, I think is, I mean, I'm not an expert on this. They're probably all interconnected neurologically, so to speak. But the first one is when you talk about a world where there's no stress. I mean, I'm just kind of coming to terms with this, but stress is healthy for you. Like, you're designed to have a certain amount. You're designed to bear stress. Like, all humans are designed to bear stress because of the situation in the forest and stuff like that. And it's normal, like, for you to have to go. Basically, the way I understood it was like we just sit in caves all day unless we decided we wanted to go out and get food. And your stress state is what you put yourself into. It's part of it, in order to be like, I have to do something. I have to go out and do this. So let me push myself to go do this. There's dopamine reward tied to accomplishing these things that you do in the stress state. And I think when you talk about the bungee jumping or the thrill seeking, that excitement, I think that's also a dopamine seeking sort of thing that puts you in a stress state. I feel like it has to do with the way the brain functions, so that they're definitely similar, but one seems to me like it's more based on, like, scaring yourself is a way to feel something, right? To feel like when you're scared, it's actually kind of cool because you're like, whoa, I was filled with feeling that I don't feel all the time. I'm in a state I never get to experience. So to me, thrill sports, as a skateboarder jumping off stairs, it's like, this is scary. I could die. Awesome. Like, so you're in a stress state, but it's pleasurable.
Yeah.
I think. And then, but then, like, if you're just talking about regular ass stress, that's just, if you want to survive, your brain has to make your body do some shit. So you psych yourself up, and then you're in a state of finding your path.
It is an interesting distinction because I can think of examples where I like a lot of these thrill type sports. I mean, I like kind of like intense downhill skiing in the woods, like somewhat dangerous stuff. I lately have been very into mountain biking, which I've injured myself already a bunch on, and often you're a bit of this like stress. It's like exhilaration, a little bit of stress, but there's also, it's like it's excitement too, right? And so I have another example when I also used to work in the rafting industry when I was young, whitewater rafting. And for me, that one took on a different level of stress where I developed quite a fear of drowning. I wonder why. Uh, but I would be, sometimes, you're taking a group of guests down some giant rapid in high water and you're scouting the rapid with the other guides, and I would just be feeling my stomach churning like I was gonna puke, and like that, and it was like, it was intense, like because I would worry, I'd be thinking about the implications, like someone could die here. It's unlikely, but like you're dealing with like crazy water and it's cold, uh and that went beyond that. So I wasn't doing, if you were a guest in my boat, you were doing that for the exhilaration, thrill seeking, like, oh yeah, I want to feel alive. But I was at the level where I was worried about the consequences and the implications of someone's injury, and it was completely negative. So I felt at that sense more like if I was really nervous in a meeting or something, like a bit more foreboding, like that kind of like anxiety stress where it's like, I don't like this. When I go mountain biking or skiing, it's a different kind of stress. There's a risk, but I don't have that like
It's
stomach
different.
churning, feeling
The
uncomfortable.
stress state there is to access dopamine, basically.
Yeah.
For the fun,
For the
excitement,
thrill, yeah, for the thrill.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And
It's
and
like
then the other
horror
one,
movies, right? Like horror
yeah,
movies, thriller movies, they're all manufactured to, trigger these responses. It's funny because recently, like this blockbuster video game came out, The Last of Us 2, and I know it's a horror game, and I was like, oh, do I want this right now in my life? Like, do I want to go on this sort of like emotional response? And then, but it's also like a downer. So it's and I was like, oh, downer horror game. And so even though, everyone's like, oh, this is a great experience, I passed on it because I didn't want to deal with my own emotional response while playing it. I'm like, I'm not looking for that in my life right now. And so, I
yeah.
passed on it.
I feel the same
have I
about like the
told-
horror stuff.
Have I told you about Doom Eternal? Which this is related. So
Okay,
for our
yeah.
listeners who don't know, Doom Legacy game, the latest entry is designed to be horrific, gross, but also to always be moving. So you're never safe if you're standing still in this game. That's the design, okay?
Sounds stressful, right?
So
I
I've played this game months ago, like 16 hours, just like, oh my god, I'm so, and just like moving, and I'm good at the game, and I'm just like playing on the hardest difficulty, and I'm like, go, 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 go. So since coming to terms with some of my mental health issues, one of them being video game addiction, I've stopped playing, right? I've limited my time immensely, differently. But last week after Core, we talked about Doom Eternal. I'm like, man, I haven't played games in a while. I'm going to boot up Doom Eternal and play it. And I did, and I played for 30 minutes. I played the first level, and the way I felt at starting, I was like excited looking to play. And after 30 minutes, I played the first level, and I was like, I was so freaked the fuck out that I shut it off after 30 minutes, something Bo doesn't do. So I was like, I can't take playing this game. So like, I didn't play games for like, maybe it was 5 weeks between that time. And 5 weeks of detox has resensitized me to the stresses of playing. Like, I'm not even sure, honestly, if I can play that game anymore. Because
What's funny though is that's
much.
like, for a drug addict, like that's like if you went straight to pure
like,
heroin, you're like, I could smoke a joint, or I could go straight to purely cut heroin.
It happens with pot. Like, if you're a regular pot smoker, you take THC breaks so that your brain heals, so that you can feel the effect. Because tolerance for drugs has to do with your brain going like, oh, this is how it's going to be. Well, we're going to adjust how it is, and then you're like, I'm not having as much fun anymore. So if you take 4 weeks off of smoking weed and then smoke again, it'll be like your first time. And it's the same is evidently true of video games. I literally did it. I'm like, I can play Doom, no problem. It's super awesome, this game. Why are people freaked out? Take 5 weeks off, and I play for 30 minutes, and I'm like, I don't want to play this. and that's a real feeling, And I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ.
I know it is, because I'm off. I've been off the video game train mostly for a long time, and those types of games, like even when I'd watched like bits of Crofton playing that horror game, and I watched, we couldn't even get it going, but it looked spooky. I was like, I can't do this. I don't want to be immersed in some horror world. Like, I can't handle it. And yeah, because it's stress in that way of like, now I'm uncomfortable. And I do think that's a distinction
for it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and between the like, if I go mountain biking or downhill skiing, it's more like it's a controlled excitement through like a low level of stress. But when it boils up,
sorry, I'm sorry,
no,
I interrupted you.
I just gonna say
saying,
when it, yeah. You go ahead.
I just want to say you've tied a dopamine reward to an activity. One of the things I'm learning is not to tie them to rewards or goals, but to tie them to the journey of the thing. So you're probably getting satisfaction from the exercise, right? Like, it's good.
Yeah, for sure I am. Yeah. I want to come back to a point Crofton made, because I had a thought about it, which was the stress versus boredom, and so I think, and I'm sure you guys have heard this before. It's definitely not my idea, but I believe it to be true, where people say boredom is an important state. And I think one in which we have essentially extracted from our society. Mm-hmm. No one's bored all the time. Why would you be bored? You got a phone to look at. You got news feeds to follow. You got entertainment to consume. You're never bored. And so what they say about the thing about boredom that's useful is that boredom, again, you're in a kind of a relaxed state. And from that state, I really believe this is true. That's where creativity comes from. And I believe this to be true because I've had periods of pretty prolonged, like when I was writing, when I was like 20, and I would actually do writing. I wrote every day. Partially is because I only worked like 3 hours a day at this crappy job. Go to work 3 hours a day. I spent a lot of time kind of like, I would entertain myself, and then I'd be bored. And if you're bored for a period of time, it's like for me, and this might not be true for everybody, but for me, if I'm bored, if I'm allowed to sit and I get to this relaxed state and I'm starting to feel bored, I know that if I keep that going, what's going to come out of that is some kind of creative outlet. Whether for me that be building something at my house, like that's how half my house got built, me being bored, and then I go build a shed or build a wall or do something. That's what comes out of it. And also other creative endeavors, like I'll start thinking, if I get bored, I'll start thinking about ideas for stories, and I really think that we're robbing ourselves of the pathway to creativity by robbing ourselves of boredom, because I would be surprised if anyone would claim that a stress state is anything creative's happening out of it. I think we've kind of been through it a bit. What does a stress state do? It gets you what you need. Now it puts out you're putting out fires when it's a stress state, whether that be for work, whether that be getting yourself food, whether that be keeping your kids healthy and safe. The stress state is not bringing you the creativity. And if you just think of like imagine, like when you're saying this, like imagine our ancestors, like what are the stress states they're experiencing? I'm hungry, I got to go and hunt and whatever, blah blah blah. There's probably a lot of stress states happening. And then you think of those like cave paintings when human beings first started to express themselves, creativity. Like I imagine, where did that come from? Did that come from like, I'm starving, I need food? Or did that come from like a period of like restfulness where it's like they have, there was a good hunt, they have some kill, you're sitting around the fire, everyone's safe, and then here's someone's like, you know what, hey, I thought about that animal, and then something creative emerged from that boredom. And I worry that like stress is like robbing us of these creative
I think you might be right, because I've been often thinking about the most recent power outage that we had here in Ottawa, where everything went down. Remember, like last year, the year before, there was big cyclones everywhere and like a bunch of power went out.
Yeah.
And I lost power for 3 or 4 days. I lost power for a bit, and it was shocking. Like it was like it got dark, and I didn't have any flashlights because I'm completely irresponsible and prepare for nothing. So I have no light, and I'm like, and my phone is super low on battery, and I want to save it because I'm like, I don't know when I'll be able to charge it. So I was bored out of my fucking mind. And you know what happened? I went to bed. Like it was like 9 o'clock. I'm like, there's no light, there's nothing to do.
Never happened
I'm
ever.
bored. Let me get a good night's sleep. And I got a great fucking night's sleep. And then during the day, the next day, I'm like, I'm so bored. Like I got nothing. I think the phone is a false like boredom solver. It does solve your boredom, but it's like junk food for your boredom. And,
I think that's what Mike was sort of getting at with that, which is that we've effectively killed boredom. I guess for me, getting back to stress, it's just one of those things where I feel like take an emergency doctor, like emergency responder of any type. Like obviously they're going to be, they need that stress, they need that adrenaline to deliver results in a quick and orderly fashion. If they're not stressed and they're just like chilled, there's my feeling is that they wouldn't be driven to the results that they're able to deliver in the situations they're able to deliver. On the other end of that, if you look at like statistics of burnouts and all sorts of stuff, they're astronomically high for emergency responders, especially like during this current pandemic. So there's this balance where they need this stress, they need this adrenaline to keep going and to deliver to the maximum capacity and to get them through perhaps what are crazy long days, because that's it. Sometimes the stress might be the only thing that pushes you when you need to be pushed. But on the other hand, if it becomes too much to bear, well, then you end up in these situations where it's literally wrecking your life.
So I can talk a little bit about that because I'm experiencing it now. I'm in a stress state a lot of the time. So if you are stressed a lot and make a habit of being in a stress work environment, like you said, first responders, they need that adrenaline. They need it. They might even work more than 40 hours a week, or they might do like 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off kind of thing. So they're in this prolonged stress state for a while. I know a police officer when I worked at Starbucks was like that. He'd work a stretch of 9-10 days, then have 4 days off or something like that. But police is a stressful job, I'm sure. But we're not designed to be in a stress state as much as we think we can. And I think the stress state is one where you're actively thinking. You're using your thought voice, you're solving problems, you're focused in a certain way to be like, what's this? What's the obstacle? How do we get it done? Is it worth doing? Is there any danger associated? Like all those things where you're evaluating, assessing, what should I do? Am I doing this? Yes, I'm doing this. How am I solving it? What's my strategy? What am I doing? You're answering all these questions. You're positing challenges, obstacles, duration, pathway, outcome. And you're designed to do that, but you're not designed to do that for 18 hours a day or even, for 5 days a week. Everyone's a little different, but we're not designed to be stressed all the time. And so when you talk about burnout, you are basically in a stress state more than is healthy for you. And this was where it affects me. If you have those thoughts a lot, you can addict yourself to that kind of thought process, which is what I am experiencing. I am constantly, and I've paired it to smoking. So I'll go out and have a cigarette, which strengthens neural pathways, and then I'll have good thinking session, which I label as thoughts. But as I've reflected, it's a lot of worry. It's a lot of, oh, I didn't call this person. I hope you guys don't think I'm shitty because we didn't do good, bad, or bullshit. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do this nice thing for this person to know my relationship's good with them. And my brain's just kind of going. But it's 9:00 at night. Like the workday is done. The time for worrying about this shit is done. Like I am allowed to have my rest reward, and I'm not giving it to myself because I'm stimulating a lot. But I'm remaining in a stress state when it's time for me to be in a different state. And I have an addiction when I'm not worrying. I feel like, things are going to fall apart. I better get back to it.
And let's be honest, if we could all be in one state if you had to pick a state and it's like, look, you can only have one state, then we wouldn't pick stress state. Like that would not be the one that you would be like, you know what? I'm going to be in that state all the time. You would pick, a relaxation state or something like that. Like while stress state has its utility, it's not the one that you would want to be in.
I think I'm supposed to agree with you because that's the healthy answer, but I know right now it's not my truth, which is kind of
pick
rough.
Stress. I want to be like buzzing.
It's like I don't even pick stress. I'm just there without it. It's unconscious at this point. Like it's not like, I'm just like I'm there like breathing.
It is funny because when you mentioned the thing about when you're talking, some of that stuff resonated with me, and when you mentioned stress and job burnout, like I had this funny situation where I had wasn't funny. I would consider it a job sort of burnout, but it was from a job where I had almost no work to do. And the reason, and I remember I'd looked into it at the time, like, why do I feel like this way? And I read some stuff about mental health in the workplace and saying the job burnout comes from two sources, one of which is being way overworked and one which is being way underworked. And if you're a person like myself and like most people who have some modicum of, work ethic or responsibility, I felt stressed all the time because I come to work, I check my email, there's the email, like inbox is empty. I bugged my boss for work the day before. They gave me a 10-minute task that was done that day. Bug them again. They're busy. That's stress. They give you, here's a 10-minute job again. And, you kind of bug them. It was like constant stress to not have work, which sounds ridiculous.
Well, it's not. It's imposter syndrome. They're going to find out that you suck.
Yeah, and that's how I felt, right? I'm like you feel like I'm not pulling my weight. Either way, it was a total cycle of constant stress, and it was awful, and it's like, so there is a balance. It's like, because you can't have, like when I was talking about boredom, like I didn't have an opportunity to be bored at work because I'm like, I'm here to be doing something and I'm not doing it, and you can't just relax and say, well, I'm going to use this to, have creative outlet or whatever. It was like, you're there on the clock, So yeah, I had felt that before, and I'd say a wholly negative experience.
Yeah. It's not fun to be in a worry. No one likes to be in a worry state because if you're like, oh, I'm worried, you're trying to get out of it, right? Like, how do I alleviate this worry? Let me do the thing. You gave the presentation thing, Crofton. Like, we've all been there. Like, I got a big thing. I don't want to fuck it up. Like, I've given presentations to board of directors before and stuff, and I'm like, ugh. I feel better the more preparation I do. So if I don't feel prepared, my worry shoots up, right? And I can't help it. I can't just be like, oh, it'll just be fine. I'll improv it. I'm like, I'm gonna fuck this up. You're like, the way to get out of this is I'm gonna prepare, so then I can feel like I can give myself a relaxation state or something. I'm guessing I'm not very good at it, apparently.
But you're right. Absolutely. That would be something that if you feel unprepared and the imposter syndrome, then you feel like you're called out uh, for potentially being an imposter or what have you. All of that stems together. And I think that that's like, just like, and I know that I recognize the time we're probably heading into verdict soon, but like for me, stress is, I always see it as a negative, is something that I don't want to have. But at the same time, I can't argue with the fact that it has helped me because I am a procrastinator. Like I am less likely, if there isn't some sort of heat on the stove, I'm not going to cook. You know, like I have switched careers in the past, for 3-4 years to go from a career that was both in the field of communications, one that was reactive, which was reacting to things as they happen. There's a media call, I need to respond to it. There's a request from our minister's office, I need to respond to it. To a proactive state. And a proactive state is like you're working on projects that have timelines and you map them out and all of this, and you have to, and no one's necessarily pushing you really hard because they're all reacting to their things. You have to be the one that pushes it. And it has been healthy for me in a way because I'm generating my own stress. It isn't other people that are generating stress for me, but it's made it harder to shut off too because I'm the one that's generating it. So like, I see its utility, and I wouldn't necessarily axe it altogether, but I don't genuinely like it.
Yeah. So can I tell you guys, and for the listeners too, because you might have heard this before, so you might get a little bored, but I feel like our listeners might benefit from it a bit. And I'll try and be succinct this time, but I had like 6 weeks ago, I had a panic attack that's related to stress and anxiety that lasted 6 days, and I didn't come down from it for about 3 weeks. And what it is that if you keep in a stress state, then you secrete, like I could feel butterflies in my stomach for 3 weeks. Like you secrete adrenaline when you don't need it. So you're like at home enjoying a salad and just something, and you're just like, I've got adrenaline, I gotta do something, and like my body wouldn't shut it off for 6 days. It would not shut it off. It was pumping adrenaline into my system. I could feel my heart, and like I get these sympathetic pains in my chest and in my arms that make me feel like I'm having a heart attack. And then I think, oh shit, I'm having a heart attack. And then I'm like, I start hyperventilating. So it's possible your body it will be like, just, if you run super fast, like not run fast, but like you try to run like you're breaking your own speed limit, you fall, right? Because you're just like, you're trying so hard. It's just like, how can you even be coordinated? And like when your body's in that high pressure state for long periods of time, it's just like, okay, well, fuck you, buddy, and goes. And during that state, on the Sunday, so there was an easy task that I could do, is just scheduling stuff. And I sat in front of my laptop for 5 hours and I couldn't do it. And I worked myself up so much instead of fully walking away or doing actual techniques to try and get me calm again, that I ended up exploding. Like I cried for 45 minutes straight. I called my sister. I lost my fucking mind. And that was Wednesday. On the Sunday night at 1 p.m., I called the hotline because I'm like, I don't know if I should call in sick tomorrow. I don't want to disappoint my boss, but I definitely don't feel right. And I was near tears, and I talked to someone for 30 minutes like, like just out of control. And I did finally call in sick, but I felt horrible about it. I was so uncontrollably stressed the next day, even though if you would have saw me, you would have said, take a sick day. It's not worth it. Like, how's this even a question? But you get so caught up in worry that it harms you. So I don't know if that helps, like, give you a sense of, I know you were asking, like, what is it when it's too much, but
Well,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
know.
It
It's
I
does
would not
sound
want
like
that.
when you lose control of it.
Yeah,
When you can't
acute
control
stress.
it and you don't know what to do with it, then you are just stuck in it, and then you are sick of it, and everyone's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Like, you
What
know.
one just bow I want to tie on it, pun intended,
Mm-hmm.
is like and just for our listeners, like obviously what Bo is just described is very important and personal, and we have been talking to Bo about this. Isn't the first time Mike and I hear about this, so that's why we're not immediately diverting to be like, oh Bo, geez, what's going on, because we know what's going
You
on and
guys
he's
know what's
taking
up.
care of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the I guess my my like Mike mentioned the psychopaths earlier about how they don't have any empathy, and then you just, when you were sort of describing your process, you were talking about when it comes to taking the sick day or whatever, worrying what other people think. And in the end, that's what I'm doing as well when I'm talking about my presentations or whatever, or imposter syndrome or what have you. Like the stress is essentially being generated, or at least my personal stress. I don't want to speak for you guys, but my personal stress is often driven from what other people either are thinking of me, or their expectations for me, say as a boss. What is a boss thinking about me? What are my colleagues at work thinking about me, and all of that sort of thing. And I have been told that I care too much about this at a certain point, but it is clearly what drives my stress. So I would, example, if I have to have a difficult conversation with an employee, in which that I know they're not going to like me after, because I'm going to be telling them bad news about their performance, that is going to stress me out a lot more than if I miss a production milestone. Like I was supposed to put out 5 of something and I put out 3 of it or something like that. I'll be like, you know what? I my bad. I'll do better next time. That doesn't cause that level of stress for me as the difficult conversation does. So it just feels like, for me, at least me personally, a lot of my stress stems from my wanting to please other people, or playing into their perceptions. And that bothers me, but at the same time, I'm glad that I have that level of empathy. I care about other people. I want them to be happy. I want to be able to help them when I can, and all of that. So it's a weird sort of messed up balance in my mind.
I have some strange homework this week for my counseling session. She said, try letting yourself get mad at something. And because my stress comes from pinning in to try and to behave, I put a lot of effort into behaving a certain way for people, and I don't. When I get mad, I pin it in. I'm worried that people will um, think I'm bossy or obnoxious, and the fact is, like, I can very much be, and that's why I pin it in. But it causes me stress because I've got to not be myself. And I hate, me, I love doing what I want and being myself, and it causes me a lot of stress. All that to say is that in the pre-show we were talking about it a little bit, but we have a personality underneath our brain function, and it's all different for each of us, right? So the way that what stresses you and what's more important and how you choose to deal with it is also a product of just who you are, and for me it's different. But what's our commonality is that we all experience the state, unless we have a condition that doesn't let us. But that we all experience the state. The part where it becomes difficult is if you can't manage it. And look, we are after high school, when we all leave and we lose all of our friends, and then we're just with our nuclear family and a few people, but we don't see the people we like as much as we want to. We end up being in places with people we didn't choose to be with and have to deal with stresses. We end up becoming very isolated. Like, even before this pandemic, I have to go to work in a place I didn't choose to be and have difficulty with. I, feel like I have a lack of control over the activities in my spare time. I don't see you guys hardly enough. I've seen my family more in the past 6 weeks than I've seen in like 5 years. Like, and it really has to do with this sense that we get into these routines because we're trying to solve life, and we're like, I gotta work, I gotta do this intellectually, I gotta do this, and that. And then that's how we get into these states of stress that we're constantly stressed. I mean, Crofton, you got to take care of your kids all the time. You got to work. You got a big presentation. You want to make your wife happy. You got to make sure there's groceries in the fridge. You got to make sure the bills are paid. You got to make sure that, you know, any contacts on your phone, don't think you're ignoring them because they pinged you or liked you, and you have relationships with people over social media. You want to stay abreast of current events so that you don't left behind. You also want to binge watch a thing and play video games. These are all stress state things. And barely in it have you.
God damn it, Bo! Get out of my mind.
Barely in there is like, you know what? I'm just gonna fuck off with Mike and Bo for like 3 days, and we don't even know what we're gonna do. We're just gonna, we agreed to get a car, and we're just gonna drive somewhere. Like, that's life too. But we have grown into this routine, thinking it's normal and thinking we're doing well, and we're maintaining high levels of stress. Like, my phenomena is not unique or special. We are globally, if you are plugged into the technological world that we are, you are overstimulated, probably everybody. I would say Mike is probably among the best of us. And Mike, you really have a priority over exercise, which is really important for people. You have a priority.
Healthy body, eating. Healthy mind, people.
Yeah, you like, and I know.
Hey,
look at Crofton's disdain when.
Well, I just like I do want to bear in mind, and it's
let me just say, I personally hate Mike, and he's just
no, but it's not through any choosing of Mike's own. Like, I think he grew up with his dad with TV on all the time, but like he literally falls asleep listening to podcasts. Like, I sleep like a baby in perfect quiet with no sort of like. I'm just saying that like for me, I am obviously on the screen circuit, as we all are and stuff like that. But I do think that, like, we all have our different distractions and our different poisons. It's just I'm open with mine.
I'm not saying you can't manage it either. I'm just saying maybe you're having too much.
Well, and beyond that, though, like, let's also say we're talking about stress. Everyone has a different threshold, right? Some people tolerate stress really well. Some people do not tolerate it well. Everyone has a different level. Some people just thrive in it, and some people don't. And you have to find what your own balance is. And like, I don't think Bo was trying to say that I'm some kind of paragon to be beheld. That is not true.
No.
I think he only means it in the sense that, like, I saw some of this destructive stuff and have taken active steps to reduce it. And I am by no means perfect. I spend way too much time on my phone like everyone else, and I spend too much time on a computer like everyone else. I'm not perfect at all. But I do think that these things do cause me more stress than they're worth. It's social media in particular. I got completely off that, and it was one of the best things I ever did. Hate social media, and encourage everyone to get off it. Your life will be better, even though it seems like it might not be. But again, stress is a very personal thing, and and a lot of people, you tolerate stress well until you don't. That often happens too, right? Where it's like, you can put up a lot, and eventually, I think it's like anything, you can diminish how much you can take, and we get worn down, which is why I always say people like, oh, you need a vacation. People like, you're tired, you're stressed out, take a vacation. And I mean, I think it's kind of bullshit to be like, we assume that like, hey, you've been stressed out for 50 weeks. Why don't you take 2 weeks off and then you'd be good to go? We'll get you back in that stress groove for another 50 weeks. Like, I mean, I think, again, it's part of the problem of our world, and some people that they can do that their whole lives and they'll be great. And other people are like, not gonna.
The point is like, what quality of life do you want to have? You'll live till 60 or 80 being stressed, probably.
Well, less likely.
But let's say you could. Would you want to? Do you want to worry constantly about everything?
Some people would. Some people love
or
that.
they think they would.
No, they're addicted. But if you could take your head out and see that let me put it this way: there are other people living good lives and doing things that you aren't able to do, and some of it might be related to overstimulation and stress. It's because you don't get good rest, you don't get good tired, you start to drag, you go, what's the point, and all that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sorry, I kind of interrupted, so I wanted to.
I lost my thing.
You lost the stress, but maybe we should pivot this into. Don't get stressed.
No,
I'm not stressed. I'm not fucking stressed.
How dare you accuse me of being stressed?
I'm gonna fight you both.
Well, I'm feeling somewhat stressed about this episode going long, and I think we should move to the verdicts. We've covered a lot of ground here, and
Crofton isn't stressed. He likes long things.
So I think we should see if
I don't know why. It's just bang on Crofton. Crofton Day. I'm sorry.
He can take it.
Just jealous of
He's
my
maybe the
sweet
most. He's
lookout.
maybe the most stress tolerant of us all right here on
Yeah,
this. In the show.
probably. Actually, that's
And-
true.
Yeah, he's
Although
a robust
that might not be
individual.
true. Not everyone suffers in the same way. Quite.
Yeah, look at Crofton. He's
Crofton
suffering
could
on
be
the
a
inside.
silent suffering.
Look,
I'm
I would
clearly number
never-
2 on this week's episode, and I hate it so much.
I would never be one to say like that I'm the paragon of stress tolerance. Like I definitely get stressed. And it's just funny because, I remember what I was going to say now. It is funny because we're heading, tomorrow is my last day of work, right? And before I'm off for 3 weeks, which is a great sized vacation. However, I'm in a job where I have to sort of really plan my vacation. So this week has been crazy busy trying to get everything together. Like, how's it going to work when I'm gone? Like and I'm victim from making myself like the chair of all these meetings, of all these things. And like, I'm not going to be there. Who's going to do it? So I have to figure out all this stuff. So tomorrow seems really stressful for me because it's my last day. I have a giant list to go through. And it's funny because when Mike mentioned vacation, what I wanted to just say is that when I came up with this topic for this episode, the other topic I was seriously considering was vacation. And the reason I was going with that was A, I'm going on vacation, but B, because of the amount of work that it requires and about how it is used somewhat as a band-aid to greater imbalancement in your life. As Mike mentioned, it's like, okay, go on vacation and then come back. Okay, you're rested. Let's go. Let's burn you again, And so I do think that the way that we sort of work vacation into our lives to manage the stress points is not necessarily super healthy or the way that vacation should be used.
I did the same thing as you before my week of vacation. And I realized how bad it is, even though I did it. Because the human race has this uncanny way, if there's a vacuum, people fill the void. Especially in a workplace. Like, that shit does happen. So, almost putting, like, the place is going to spin out of control. It's like, maybe. But it's not it doesn't belong to you. Nothing you care about depends on the outcome. All that you'll do is lose a job. There are others to get. It's not a big deal at all.
That's always go ahead.
So what I'm saying, and I did the same thing. I overworked myself the week before vacation, and I didn't come down from my work stress till about the Wednesday of the week. I carried thoughts with me until Wednesday after the Friday ended, and I was like, man, that fucking sucks. Like, that really sucks. And it's not my job's fault. It's my fault. Because I spent the week being like, I don't want things to fall apart while I'm not here, and I realized I did that to myself, and so like the vacation prospect can be tainted by the fact that we were overworked. The way that we work right now, 40 hours a week is too much.
Stress even creeping into ruining vacations.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get us back on track because I feel some stress about being the host and keeping it going. So let's I'm gonna keep making that horrible joke. Why don't we get the farm animals stressing you out?
All right,
get the farm animals out here and then let's
they're not stressed.
No, they're animals. They suffer a lot of stress.
Oh, they're singing right now.
Order, I said! Order in the court!
Order in the court. So, as the host, you get to decide the order of verdicts, I believe.
Well, I think you know what? Okay, why don't I'm going to start. How about that?
Sure.
Yeah. It's funny because this is one of these, like, sort of like you're countering it versus, like, what I would like to have, what is useful, what is reality kind of thing. And I often like to live in the idealized version or what I would like to have. I do feel like in an ideal state, like Crofton said, who would pick a stress state? And I mean like a real stress state. Like I think honestly most people, like, if you could just say, hey, look, the whole world, things are all taken care of. There's food on everyone's table. You can have what you need. You can spend time with your friends and family, relax. Like, who wouldn't pick that? And no one's going to suffer for it. There's no work's not going to get done. That sounds
psychopaths.
Yeah, psychopaths. They would hate that. But yeah, most people, I think that's the idea. Like, less stress, I think, is good. And no stress is a motivator. it serves its purpose. I often think, like, sometimes I look at my cat who lives in, a cat. He's either like supremely relaxed on a, he's an animal, right? Supremely relaxed on a couch, and then it's like you make a noise, and he's like, you look at his face, he's ready to like bolt up a tree or like fight to the death with some other animal, and that, like living in nature is a stressful, that fight or flight response that we were talking about with the bear, that stress keeps you alive, but it's also not a great way to live. One of the greatest things we've accomplished as a human species, we're not like in the woods, like scrounging out a living. We live pretty comfortable lives. And I think we spend a lot of time manufacturing stress for ourselves that probably does not need to exist. And I think that minimizing it as much as possible will almost always serve you dividends. And as much as we're pressured to revel in stress and to perform under stress and to perform under pressure by our like 40-hour work week, and forget the 40-hour work week, you want to be a lawyer, you want to get to the top, you got to put in the time. It's like that speech from Glengarry Glen Ross where Alec Baldwin is telling everyone, just putting the stress on all.
He says, put that coffee down. The guy goes, what? He's like, coffee's for closers.
Yeah,
he's like, you drove a fucking Hyundai here. I drove a fucking Rolls Royce. That's who I am. He's like, coffee's for me.
It's too hard. It's too hard for you. Hit the bricks, pal. It's just like that. That's like the work world where a lot of people have that attitude. It's like work. It's kind of like, for what? And so just before I get to my verdict, I'm going to share with everyone a little bit of what I do. This is my own personal stress relief. This will not work for many people, but for me, it almost always works.
We don't want to recommend jacking off, please.
It's not always the best time and place for that.
No.
So what I do, and this always, because I'm like everyone else, especially at work, I'll get caught up in something and feeling stressed or something. It's like, something's not working and just getting on me. I always, and you guys know me well, I like to think about big picture stuff. I will always just think about either, and probably both of, geological time, the vastness of time, like all of human history is like in 10,000 years. Think about the millions of years. There was dinosaurs on this fucking planet 60 million years ago, and we have been alive. Everything that we think matters or is important has existed in 10,000 years. It's nothing. In 10,000 years from now, which is nothing in terms of geological time, everything that you stressed and worried about will matter to all of nobody.
I can see that stressing some people out, Mike.
It might
but
not
for
me,
you.
But for me, yeah. Some people would be like, "Oh my god, that's
oh my god, my life is meaningless."
But for me, what that always, but it is. But it just lets it, for me, melt away to be like, look, this is not really important.
You're putting things in perspective. And
it puts things into perspective for me, and just usually lets me just melt that stress away and being like, look, yeah, my boss is stressed, like whatever. It's not a thing. That helps me. So I was debated, am I going to go bullshit on this or bad? But I think I'm just going to say stress is bad. I really think that more of it just cortisol levels, it makes you feel bad. The motivation that comes from it, it's not the best kind. I would prefer a lot more time with creative motivations coming from boredom. I think are much deeper and more satisfying forms of motivation than our stress ones. Stressors like, put the fire out, don't die now. That's not what we need more of. So stress, bad. That's my verdict.
Yeah, that's a good verdict,
passing the torch.
Yeah. So who should go next?
Whichever. I don't know. You guys.
I assume, Bo, your verdict's going to be long. I feel mine will be shorter, so maybe I should just do mine now.
All right. I haven't had a last word in a little while, maybe. So yeah, let's do it.
All right.
It
feels like a last word for you. Yeah. So I'm going to go right out and I'm going to preface with my verdict and then go into why. I'm going to say that stress is bullshit.
Classic Crofton.
Yes, and stress is bullshit, and it is a bit of a cop-out, and I will say that I'm impressed that Mike put his flag in the sand and is like, you know what? No, it's bad. I was thinking about it in both ways, in the, like, if you could just choose one state, what state would you choose? But like, if you could just extract stress from your entire being, like if I could perform some sort of mental magic and take away all stress from me permanently, like the ability to feel stress and all that, becoming essentially
you'd be a psychopath.
Would I want that? would that be a choice that I would make if I could make that choice? And the answer is I would not do that. And the reason for that is that, like, I have my brain and my being and all of that, and I have to learn to sort of work with it. I don't have any sort of, that I'm aware of, diagnosed conditions that lead to abnormal amounts of stress or uncontrollable stress or anything like that. So really, it's just a matter of me getting in control of this thing that can sometimes help me, but often can harm me as well. And I have been to see a counselor at a period of great stress, which was during work, like a work-related stress. I do feel those pressures, and I do try to manage them better. And I don't think that stress is a positive thing overall. Like, people who are more stressed, I want to help them become less stressed. That is where I feel, and I have that empathetic response and caring about how other people are doing and what other people think is one of my main triggers of stress or create stress for me. So so I do think that it can be a tool that can serve, that can help. But in the spectrum of bullshit verdicts, this is one that falls much closer to the bad than the good. Let's just put it that way. But I do have to say, for me, that stress is bullshit.
All right. Well, there you go.
Hey, bring it home, Bo.
This is a tough one to bring home, because I just realized that it's like asking a crack addict if crack is good or not. So I'm like, you know what? Stress is good. And I'm just going to go ahead and play the sound. Stress is good. That being said, like, I like being in the state of stress, I think, on some like very fundamental level. But intellectually, I know that stress is an essential part of our life, so I think it's a good thing to run away from the bear. Like, I sort of look at it and I'm like, I'm glad that I feel the need to run away from bears or save people when they're in danger. So I think it's ultimately a good thing that just can be kind of it can be abused, and it can be detrimental if you are overstimulated or overstressed all the time. We're not designed to be stressed out all day, all the time. The one thing I wanted to, I'm not sure if this actually works or not, so I don't have a stress technique, never mind. But it just sucks to not be able to get out of a stress state, I guess. Which, that part is bullshit.
So you're like, it's bad. Good. Stress is good, but it really sucks when you can't get out of it.
I'd rather be a human being with stress than a human being without able to be stressed, as you described in the beginning. So that sort of was what informs my opinion, I guess. But yeah, there are other states of being that I need to be in. So I guess this isn't really a good verdict. Because
I'm not clear, and I want to make sure that
I'm clear.
I think it's good because I want to be able to run away from the bear. Like, I think I'd rather have stress than not have it, and I don't think it's bullshit because I distinguish the stress state from just being stressed out too much, right? I'm just like, it's a question of degrees. So like, it's good to have, sex sometimes or every day, but it's not good to have sex 72 times a day, right? So that's my experience of stress. It's just like I'm going to be in a high stress state after leaving the show, and I need to go to bed, and I have to bring myself down. So this is more about me and not about stress itself. So I'm saying stress is good.
Okay.
And yeah, that's it.
I feel like this has been a very, like when Blossom would have a very special episode of Blossom. I feel like this has been like a very special episode of Good, Bad, or Bullshit. In that it's a bit of a downer, but I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, well, why don't we just get the outro out of the way, which is, we want to tell you, our listeners, that if you have any thoughts on stress, if this episode made you stressed out, if you want to tell us about it, we would love to hear from you. There's many ways to reach us. You go to our website, goodbadbull.com, and you can find our email address. Send us an email. We'd love to read it on the air if you did. Goodbadbull@gmail.com, or send us a tweet at goodbadbull. You could also engage with us on Facebook, I believe. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, go ahead and do so if you'd like to. Google Play, iTunes, Spotify, all those places. And then Patreon, we do have some patrons for the show. We always want to give a shout out to them. Thank you so much for supporting us. And if you'd like to contribute, you could also do that. Patreon.com/goodbadbull. And so that's the end.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Yes. Say so. Yeah, and if you want to find out more about Bo, just give your
BoSchwartz.com.
and Crofton. What do you got?
Follow me on Twitter at Crofton Steers, all one word, and like and subscribe.
There you go. And you can't follow me anywhere because I'm in the woods being not stressed out. And one thing I want to say is that I want to make clear that in my verdict, I was in no way advocating for psychopathy as a way of, I feel like that was implied somehow.
Oh, sorry.
Afterwards.
Sorry. I didn't mean to.
I never said that.
No.
And I would, I guess maybe to clarify a little bit, I'd be like, yes, if a bear was chasing me, I would appreciate the stress thing to make me run. But what I was saying was that, but wouldn't it be better if you didn't get chased by a bear? That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying I want access to stress. I'm saying the things that cause you stress, if we had less of them, that would be better. I enjoy feeling emotion and empathy, and you can have those things without being put in the positions of stress.
So
I'm just saying that we were rendering verdicts on stress, not the things that cause stress. And so...
Shut up. If I can jump through the screen and throttle you right now.
Michael, you're causing a lot of stress to me right now. I respect your opinion, and now I've lost your respect.
I've lost my yes.
Oh, no. He found you out. Imposter syndrome.
Oh, Imposter syndrome. Oh, God.
Man, I hope our listeners don't find out this isn't a real podcast. Or
what? What they're going to find out, at least celebrities have had fake podcasts where they have nothing better to say. They got to read the weather report. Come on, David Lynch.
They'll have to be able to listen to it first, though.
That's true, which will never happen. But that's the mark of a good podcast. It has like no listeners. And
and it makes the few wait.
We're a cult listen at this point because we're not mainstream. We've been doing it a long time, and we kind of are. You know what I mean? Like, just
man,
like
wait till the hipsters
basically.
Find out about us. We're gonna have so many listeners.
I thought you meant we were listened to solely by cult members, which would also be possible.
No, but one of the things I've noticed, because this isn't the only place where I've brought up my recent events, is that there are a lot of people out there that have hurts that are affecting them, and I just want to say. If your foot turned green, you'd go to the doctor. So if you think your part of your brain is going green, seek help.
Go to the doctor?
Go to the doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, you can always, and you can start with your family doctor with that stuff too. If you don't have other resources.
It's not that bad. I was my first session ever at 40, and I hated the first one, but I stuck it out, and it's been doing good. So
there's resources, people.
Yeah,
it gets better.
Don't. Yeah, exactly. There's help. We all need it sometimes.
And sometimes we just need to end the show, Bo.